I think we're there.
Wow.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
All right. Welcome
Oh
back.
my gosh. So glad to be back from a little hiatus. Jason, you took yourself on a fabulous vacation. I took
Yeah.
myself to Columbus, Ohio. We're not the
Back
same.
in Columbus.
We're not the same. Jason, this morning I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Steven, who I think I might have met at my second Dreamforce back when I was a much younger person. He was one of the first people that I heard really publicly start to talk about the importance of sales operations, which is when I decided, like, I'm going to listen to everything this guy ever has to say ever. And so today I'm excited to introduce you and all of our friends and foes to Stephen. So, Stephen, welcome to our very early morning call. I hope your voice is more well rested than mine.
I am so excited to be here, and it's so great to be with all of you. And I am equally jealous that Jason went on vacation without us. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was nice. I'll just say it was Caribbean, and it was not the 20-degree snow and weather that we've been dealing with here at home. So
Subtle, Jason. Nice to rub it in. All right, well, good.
nice to meet you too, Stephen. Excited to learn about Collective Eye.
I can't wait to talk a little bit about it as well.
Sure. Can you give us a quick little background on the company itself?
Yeah, the company started about 10 years ago, and we started right around the same time as DeepMind, excuse me, and OpenAI. And we were all focused on the same problem, which is how do you apply this new kind of AI called deep learning to a host of different issues. We did not choose to focus on what we would call commodity data, which is language, images, audio, and video. We chose to focus on studying how the world does business. So we created something called an economic foundation model. And as the name implies, collective eye is short for collective intelligence. We thought that it was weird to have a world where nobody understands how the economy functions. I know it may sound weird, but how is it 300 years after Adam Smith wrote about the invisible hand that somehow we've digitized everything, but no one understands how anything works? It just struck us as strange. And that's the beginning of the business. Today, we're used by almost all the major revenue organizations because nobody wants to ask everybody what they think they're going to do. They want to know what's likely to happen. And that's what we do for a living. We have been referred to by the Wall Street Journal as the Waze for sales because we learn from everybody who's on the same road ahead of you. And we just relay back information. So there's a lot less surprises in life. And that's how we got the business started. 10 years later, we built this huge network that tracks about 5% of the globe's economy. It feeds all into one big brain, just the way Google Maps does. And it just keeps getting smarter and better.
Nice.
I love that, Stephen. I think one of the things that is so critical about what you're doing and the work that you're doing is every single person who's in an executive role says, we have to make data-driven decisions, but no one knows how to unlock the data, what the right data is, and then how to make those decisions. And I think that's one of the things that Collective Eye does so seamlessly and so well. So, can you introduce everybody to what your sort of audience looks like? Who are you collecting the data from? So what are the best companies that you're working with, and how do they sort of factor into your Google roadmap?
Yeah, so the cool part about the business model is anyone can work with us. In the beginning, we started off with Fortune 2000 companies. So we were able to, like, our very first customer was GE. So we were able to start mapping the world. So imagine if you're Google Maps and none of the roads exist to you. How do you get started? Well, if you have a FedEx driver or you sign up FedEx or UPS, they go on every road every day. And so that's sort of how we started. From there, we just started leveling up more and more organizations. And today, now anyone can use it. Just like Google Maps, you don't have to be FedEx or UPS to get the value of it. You can literally benefit from the collective knowledge. And that's really what's ended up happening over the last 10 years. We like to explain to people, because most people, when they hear our model, they'll say, oh, my company would never share data. And we sort of look and say that's not really the truth, right? Because if you look at every other part of the organization, they are actually effective because they are doing it, right? In advertising, Google, LinkedIn, Right. Facebook, these are the sources of places where people go. That is a shared data source where the AI algorithm learns from everyone and helps the next person who's advertising. If you look at the CFO, everyone's like, oh, well, the CFO doesn't do it. Yeah, well, you don't extend credit to a customer based on how they've paid you. You go to a credit bureau because you want to make sure they're paying everybody else as well. And so when you look across all the org, every part of the org usually works with some kind of data collective. And the beauty of these models are you're learning beyond just you. And I think the challenge for a lot of revenue organizations are they're trying to make data-driven decisions based on their own data while arguing that they're client-centric. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And they're doing it the hardest way possible. I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that's
fact,
it.
Yeah, Jason, I was going to say the first thing is we would meet our customers and they would say, well, why would we ever contribute data? And our argument would be there are just certain business problems that you have. Take forecasting as a simple example that you cannot do well with your own data. Sales has, what's the number one saying in sales? Buyers lie.
Mhm.
And
Right.
we're polling our sellers to find out what they've heard. Nothing makes sense.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's like this weird the game of telephone, right? It's like you're gonna
Yeah.
whisper this and that's gonna change, and it's just gonna kind of morph, and you're gonna get this discombobulated set of information, as opposed to what I'm hearing here with collective, where you're getting the temperature, engaging everything from this collective experience.
I always tell people when we tell them about, let's just use forecasting example.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell them about it, they always say, well, I don't know, would it work for me or would it work for my industry? And I always ask them the question, if you were in a car with 4 of your best friends and you had your smartphone, you had to go on a trip that was going to take about an hour, whose estimated arrival would you trust? Google Maps or your 4 best friends?
I'm a maps dad, so I'm leaning on the maps, right? I use it to go down the street, so see if there's even a better way, right? It's like if there's traffic down, there's got a few lights down the road, I'm going around. I'm going to rely on the technology. That's just me. So
you're right. I mean, look, this is what when people say they're data driven. That's what it is. It's not your own data, because if you're trying to understand a buyer and you deal with them, let's say once a year, how can you possibly know what they're likely to do? My AI, we call it intelligence, sees that same buyer doing every transaction they do. We know how they behave when they're going to buy, what they say, who's involved. So for our AI, it's very easy to say, oh, they're in this pattern. This is what they're going to do. We know how long it usually takes. We know when their end of quarter is. We know what's going on with the business. We can see when people are leaving the organization or when new people are coming in. We can see when all of a sudden they start slowing down purchases. All that stuff is very easy for our AI to do without ever disclosing data. And we can just apply it to you. And I think this is where people have a hard time sort of getting when people are saying being an AI first company or being data driven, this is what it means. And I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people to get their arms around is you cannot solve these problems if you try to do it just with your own data.
That's one of the things, just as you were talking, I wanted to learn a little bit more about, and that is, where is the heaviest lift for Collective Eye when you're implementing into a new organization, onboarding them? Is it strategically understanding the way that data works, or is it tactically saying, hey, we're getting inside of the UI, we're trying to understand how to ascertain information based on what Collective Eye is telling us? Like, where's your heaviest lift? I'm curious about that.
Funny, it used to be when we started getting access to the data, using the data. The data was in really poor quality because it's CRM. It's not great. We've solved all those problems. We can get a customer live in 2 weeks where we have perfect data because we connect to their email, their calendar, their phone. That's not it. It's all mental. And what I mean by that is for 30 years, sales has had this concept of a sales stack where they layer one technology to do one thing. And almost everything in a CRM first mentality is about where do I find the data so that I can answer the question. In an AI first, you start off with the answer. So we come in and the whole stack collapses. Inside of Collective Eye, you get free unlimited contacts. You don't need to go out and buy Zoom contacts. They're free. They're kept up to date by the network. You don't have to do that. You get relationship mapping. It's built in. So it's not a social network, it's a professional network. You might ask, what's the difference? Social networks are about connecting. Most people are connected but have no idea who each other are. In ours, we actually rank every connection by the strength of how well you know each other, from doing business to how quickly you write back to each other, to title parity and all these other great things. So you can actually see who actually knows who and navigate an org based on validated data. And then we do the forecasting. We do all this stuff, but what it is in AI, it has to have all the information in one place for it to make a good decision for you, the same way we do. Humans have done that in CRM first companies. They have to go into 14 different technologies, and then they try to put it together in their head. A neural net just does that for you much faster, but it means you don't need as many tools and technology. That for people is crazy. The idea that you start with the answer, this deal is likely to close and this one's not. How do you know? Well, the AI has been reviewing this deal, okay, and everyone will like it across your entire org. So you get the answer without having to go through a story. And I think that for a lot of people is a little bit unnerving, because a lot of the ops people that we deal with think, no, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be building the stack. And we think that would be a shame if that's the only thing that they do, because the reality is they are the hub of revenue. And in an AI first org, what you end up having is that hub controls the rest of the company because everything's dynamic. CRM first is very rigid, right? You all have seen this. Like the whole goal is to make sure that everybody does the exact same thing so that nobody goes out of bounds, so that they don't create deals we can't service and no one's prepared. And I get that. But the reality is that's a very seller-centric view of how deals get done. 73% of buyers who bought had an unhappy experience.
Wow.
That is not good.
No.
That is like airline level bad.
It's pretty dismal.
So we just think that the newer customer is expecting you to adjust to them, not the other way around. And that's AI first, right? Everything is about optimization, not trying to make a fixed number. It's about optimizing, because if you optimize, it means you've serviced the customer well. And so these are mental shifts. And I think I worry a lot for a lot of the ops people because no one's being honest with them. They're telling them you could just, on top of your stack, you can layer a little bit of AI, or each of the vendors are out there are calling machine learning AI, even though when most people think of AI, they think deep learning like ChatGPT or intelligence. So the problem is they're getting sold this is going to be like ChatGPT, and then what they're getting is a worm level intelligence, and they're trying to save their stack, right? I feel like the only thing missing in the ops team are, like, remember the old Russian generals? They used to have like that brick of all the medals they were, and I feel like that's like, I put in Aptus, I put in Conga, all these things, like, and like they deserve these medals, and they're so proud of that, but that's not where the world's going anymore.
Right.
That whole stack just collapsed.
Yeah, I mean, the technology can parse through that information instantly, as
Better.
Sifting through exactly, and give you the insights and intelligence to do better moving forward. So
look, Jason, you're right. The other thing is, it's the only way to consistently do it.
Yeah.
Sellers come, sellers go. There's a 35% turnover rate. Leaders come, leaders go. Takes people on average 6 months to get caught up. How do you know what's happening in your business if everything's constantly in flux? The AI is the thing that looks consistently without bias, and it's not trying to convince you of anything other than what it thinks is likely to happen. And that's the thing that I think is the exciting part of this world, because you start to get to a place where the rest of the org starts looking at sales as the leader it should be. And that sometimes is hard when I say that, because people think they are leaders, except I'll say this. Every Friday when everyone does their forecast meeting, where are all the other functions sitting in and listening? They are not there, which means no one sees you as a leader. If marketing is not sitting in trying to figure out how to adjust their marketing spend to your needs, they don't listen to you. If CFO is not there and he discounts your number by 10%, you are not a leader. If fulfillment is not there, you're not a leader. Like, this is a problem. And we think this is a big time to solve that, because sales used to be the path to CEO. It has not been in 20 years.
So, Stephen, this is such a huge paradigm shift. It's a new way to think. So, how are you, Stephen, taking this message and evangelizing it, knowing that you're asking people to think conceptually in a totally different way? So, instead of thinking about, a platform with a bunch of point solutions, we're now thinking first, how do we get the data that we're then going to make these decisions from? Because that feels to me like a pretty tall order for you.
Look, when we go to a customer, we don't tell them to destroy their stack. I think if we did that, they'd have a heart attack. They wouldn't want to believe me. It would send them running to the players hawking low-level AI because it feels comfortable. Usually we start off and we say, look, let's start with something simple. You have a system of record with no records. Why don't we just clean up all that data in your CRM and just show you how in 2 weeks I can resolve a problem that you spent 30 years trying to solve?
Mm-hmm.
We do that, and then they're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then we say, look, by the way, let me show you your forecast done for you. And I didn't ask a single person. And by the way, I don't want your commits. I don't want your best practices. I want to show you that I can be more accurate in everything that's happening on your day-to-day by not asking them, because I really don't want their bias. I really don't want them trying to manipulate the system. And you start to work your way up. And what happens is there's this moment where you realize everything you've been doing has been trying to get to something, right? We created MedPick because people were manipulating odds, and they were manipulating odds by changing stages back and forth. Then we started building, like everything was built as like the circular belts and suspenders because everyone was manipulating everything. Once you realize you can't manipulate it, you realize, oh my God, why am I doing everything the hardest way possible? And I'll share a funny story. One of the teams I worked with asked me, okay, I see your forecast. How do I change the number? And I said, you sell more. And they said, no. In every other forecasting tool, I can change the number. I was like, this is not a system of manipulation. You have to. What happens when Google Maps says you're going to arrive in an hour 10 and you need to be there in an hour? You put your foot on the floor. That's all you can do.
Make a couple extra minutes up there.
Yeah, that's all you do. And you've done it before. You realize that's the reality of the world. You can manipulate until you can't anymore. And that's one solution. The other solution is you just optimize and change your outcome. And that logic is actually much easier when you switch to it.
Right.
But no one's used to that. So what's funny is only in sales do people think this way. You cannot manipulate advertising. Every day they're changing keyword buys because they're looking at and saying, what's the cost per lead? And that's the way most people operate. Sales has been the only one who can actually go and tell people, here's what I think I'm going to do, until they don't. And then they blame everything else. And I think that's a problem for us. That's why I said when your function is not getting the CEO role more frequently than others, it means you're losing power. That's not good. Can I share one other thing?
Absolutely.
Please.
Everybody else knows it. Let me ask you a question. For an enterprise seller, their quota is roughly usually about $1 million a year, right?
Right.
It's been that way for 10 years.
Yes.
Is there any other function, despite inflation, despite everything else, all the tooling up, that has the same goal every year for 10 years? Because don't think CFOs don't notice it.
CFOs, I think, notice everything. And my guess is CFOs love collective eye.
They love collective eye. I will tell you, CFOs, CROs, CEOs love it. It's more the rest of the org that has sort of managed the number that gets a little bit freaked out. And ops gets freaked out because they just are not used to having one technology that runs everything on its own. And we just have to help get them there. And we do a great job of getting them into an AI first mentality. And it changes their worldview because everything is easy. That's it.
I love that so much. And it now is a great time because we've seen everything change with engagement, the way that people are using email, the responses that we've had. Now AI is evaluating AI when we're thinking about Gen AI in terms of email marketing. And so it probably feels like a great time to be Stephen Messer because everyone's thinking a little bit differently now about their roles and about the way that we use tech stacks. And, you mentioned before, these sort of data rooms or data sources, and I think everyone's eyes are a little bit open to that. And there's a lot of instances of these big companies that we know saying we have AI, but they're not really telling you what the AI is doing beyond next best action. So I wonder what your personal roadmap looks like for 2025.
Oh, let me tell you something. If you come and use Collective Eye, you will experience that we are releasing weekly new features, new products, new things. The speed at which AI companies operate is like nothing you've ever seen. A customer will tell us we have this problem. There will be a solution probably by the end of the week. It is just that fast. Because you're no longer dealing about how do I get my stack set up. You're no longer figuring out where do I get D&B data? How do I create a master account list? How do I get contacts in and keep them up to date? Like when all that stuff goes away, what happens is everyone's just coming up with new things. So we launched Telly, for example, at the beginning of the year. Telly is short for intelligence. It is the coolest chatbot you've ever dealt with because it knows everything about your business. It knows everything from our network. You want to ask questions like, how is inflation going to affect my business? Answers like that. So for the first time, you're able to come in and lead organizations. Then you start doing it for research around your customers. Then you start doing it for following your customers to see when something changes, please just tell me. And all of a sudden, this agentic world that you hear everyone talking about is just normal for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the speed at which this revolution is happening has been amazing. So is it a good time for us? Our company is growing insanely fast. That's never a good time for the founder because it means you're trying to make sure that you deliver everything you promised and more. The speed at which AI is moving, we are considered to be one of the top players in the AI space. In fact, we've heard people talking about how we'll probably get a Nobel Prize in economics for what we did. We are just working like dogs all the time so our customers get the benefits of it. And so in a few years, when hopefully I get to go with Jason to the Caribbean and he invites me so I can get a little vacation,
we're all going.
That would be nice. But for now, my job is to make sure that I deliver to my customers things that are just jaw-dropping.
And what's the best way, like, let's talk a little bit about, obviously, barrier to entry here. What's the best way for somebody out here? It's like, look, we do need to do, run our operations differently. We do need these types of insights. What's the first step?
There's two things. There are companies that have budget and there's companies that don't. And you might think I'm going to talk to the people who have budget, but I'm going to talk to all of them. One of the unique things about Collective Eye is we give individual user licenses away for free. They're completely complimentary. So if you had 10,000 sellers and no budget, you could sign up for Collective Eye and give 10,000 free licenses.
Nice.
We're fine with that. It's a community model. We want everybody to learn.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to ask if the street's running both ways here, right? Obviously, you're getting that user on board, but then you're also gaining more insights and you're gleaning more information into the network and kind of feeding the hive, so to speak.
Look, we believe that when we work together, we win together. So the more of us that contribute data, every day our customers are getting upgrades to intelligence because we keep launching more and more people and we welcome them. In fact, if you're an individual and say, look, I don't even have a CRM, just sign up for intelligence.com. It's free. You get access to all of the AI at no cost. We believe that this benefit of all working together means everybody gets a benefit. Mm-hmm. So you can start as simply as that. And for a lot of companies, that is the best way to start seeing that, yeah, you're going to get great access to insights and everything else. So where do people pay? You might say, okay, well, if it's all free, why doesn't everyone do it? And there's two places that people pay. One is if you're a leader. If you want to see a rolled up view of every individual, you pay. Mm-hmm. But you can buy a license at a time. You can buy, if you have 10 million, let's say you have 100 managers, you could still buy one just to test it. We're okay with it. We try to make the entry easy to understand, easy to adopt. But almost everyone, I think, Jason, if you're asking me, starts off with there's sort of a hidden shame, which is they think, well, we're not ready because my data's junk, and I don't want anyone to know about it. And so we'll eventually get to that place where we're ready, but we're not there now. And I will tell you, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've never seen a functioning CRM.
Right.
I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never seen a new ops person come in and say the last one had made a horrible set of mistakes that I'm going to have to fix. I have never seen that in my life. Our systems are designed to fix all that. We expect you to come in with junk. That's what we spent 10 years building, is a system that cleans everything up, so you don't have to. And that's why we say, even if you just start with us to put good data in your CRM so you can see a CRM function for the first time in your life, we'll start there. But our job is just to start you down this road before this road runs over you.
Sure.
I
Yeah, that's great.
absolutely love this. Is wonderful. I just peeked up at the time, and I thought we'd only been talking for about.
I know.
I knew this was going to happen, Stephen. You're
Yeah, we
so
might
engaging.
Part 2, maybe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've got to get you back on. Everyone who joined us this morning, thank you so much. Or if you're watching the replay later, please go to collectivei.com. You've got to get in on this. You've got to figure this out. Stephen, thank you for spending your time with us today. It was wonderful. And I know we will see you again because we have so much more to discuss with you.
I would come back anytime for you, Shannon. Maybe not for Jason because he doesn't take us to fun places, but I would do it for you anytime. And it was so much fun to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on. And I can't wait to catch up with your community. And thanks to your community as well. It really is great to have a chance to talk to them.
Thank you so much.
Let's
Have a
see.
great day, everybody.
All right. See you. Some Oz for the camera.